All right.
Now recording.
Real quick before we even jump into creating the project, I just want to do like a quick little overview on batch processing. This is quick. This is only 5 slides. This is just a little piece of information about a few things of batch processing that I thought would be useful to know. If anyone doesn't know what batch processing is, it's just an automated process of transactions, particularly of data and records. Right here it says that it's used to process large amounts of records and data, usually within thousands or millions, even more, to a file or trying to be processed to a database. Some main ideas. Batch processing is automated, so it's created and then it's allowed to run without the use of having someone to actually look over it. So automation allows for like peace of mind, and it also has a way for you to provide alerts to be sent to either the manager or other people working on this or that have access to this to notify them of any failures or issues that are happening in the process or that are causing an issue in the process. There are dependencies which are events that trigger the process, whether it's a loading of a web page or a customer trying to order new supplies for their work or something. Usually there's always a trigger that generates this or starts this batch processing, and then there's also monitors within batch processing that check for abnormalities and other things like delays or some sort of issue. And then, like I said prior up here, it it generates an exception and will send it to the notifying person that's designated to send to. When to use it, like I said, large volumes or big data that need to be processed. When you tend to see that your work is being repetitive when processing data, especially a lot of it at once.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I know I'm a funny person sometimes. Real-time transfers and results are not crucial. So if you don't need results at that exact moment, or the results of what you're getting aren't something crucial that need for your either application or website to work, then this could also be a good process. And advantages and disadvantages, kind of lengthy, but the advantages, if I run through quick, the lower cost. If you have a system processing things for you, you don't have to pay people to take care of this by more hands in the pot. You know what I mean? Less people having to look over things. You have a whole process doing its own thing that's automated, and usually there's like from what I read, 1 or 2 people that are kind of managing it, and other ones being notified of things, and specialists for that type of work. It can also be ran offline, which is helpful if you need to do processes overnight. If no one's there, if there's no connection to internet, these things can still run in the background with data that they already have. As I said, hands-off management. Exceptions are made, and notification systems are allowed to see the data, see the issues that arise, and then simplicity. There isn't much heavy-duty maintenance with them. Then once they're made, they're pretty much made. You can make them more effective or add things to them, but generally from what I've read, once they're built, and they just process and people check up on them. Disadvantages, it's usually like trying to pay people or find people that are trained in this, and if you don't have anyone in-house that's trained, then you have to find someone that's outside, like it says here, outside consultants to actually work on the debugging process if no one is well trained on it. So this is usually what kind of leads companies away from doing it if they don't already have it implemented, because they tend to not want to worry about that extra cost, which I find funny with all these other advantages.
What I will say though is that, let's say you now have batch processing on your resume as a skill you have. What does that do for you?
I didn't read anything about that, but I can't see that not being. I can only see it being a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't see it not being a positive.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I mean,
Double
if you know how
negative.
to
Let's
do
do
these
that.
kinds of things and you know how to take in big data and process it, it's only going to look better for you. Even if the company doesn't do that, then it doesn't mean they won't end up doing it later. And
Exactly. Knowing that you
if
do
you're
it, yeah, you can be the lead for it,
if
and
it's in
then
your
that usually
pocket,
includes money.
and they could come to you, and if that's the case, I mean, from what I was reading, I don't obviously I haven't worked with big data yet, but just seeing this like little example, and then I know we're going to be working with big data in our capstone. It seems really cool, really in depth, and the abilities that you're going to be able to take such like a huge amount of data and throw it into a database to be able to be used. I just think it's so cool, and I'm sure a lot of companies are trying to find ways to switch over to this because I think it's more efficient from what I've read and researched. But that's my opinion. I mean, I didn't see anything definitive on it. I have a lot of opinions on the whole thing, but
Let's throw on another
uh,
use case for this before you get to that last one. Another use case that can
yeah,
actually be done with this, and an example of why you might want to consider this. So, in our current systems that we use, let's say you have 1 million data points of just numbers, and you create a for loop to go through that, and you're going through assuming they're all going to be numbers. And again, it's not. Let's say it's not an array; it's just a stream of inputs coming in. You don't know where it's coming from. Maybe it's a file. It's not really an array. It's just a data source, and you're assuming them all to be numbers. So you set up your code to accept an int, pulls it in, does the information on it. Now, if you got a million items, let's say you get to item 671,892, and then suddenly that next number is formatted bad, and it's a number space a number. What happens to your project?
if you don't have it handled to accept it, it will break
It can crash, right? What happens to all that previous
yeah,
work, possibly?
down the chute.
You
Gone.
can lose it, right? So another concept of batch processing is that you're breaking the big data into smaller chunks that you can process them. So if one of those chunks fails, you can rerun that one chunk, but all the other ones still can get through and still process and still apply. So you can get like 99% of your process to go through, and that one that fails, you can, if you have it set up right, and as Chris mentioned, the reporting system, let them know which data was not pulled in, so they could rerun that same batch to try it again, or go in, pull out the bad data, and then rerun the batch again, and that specific batch out of the whole system and get that to run and get the data in. So that's another one of the benefits of batch processing that can be useful. That is just a common use case out there. Batch processing can break a piece apart and make sure that it goes through little by little. So if one fails, you don't break the whole thing and lose all that work. So another option. We keep going.
I didn't implement any of that notification system within this project, but there is a
Again,
lot of things
ground
out
level.
there and everything. But yeah, ground level. Yep. All right. And then the last one is just I apparently a few things I read just mentioned this that, if you're finding yourself really doing a lot of computing jobs manually, or there's a good chance that uh, if you're doing that, then there's a good chance that batch processing software, finding the right one could do a lot for freeing up time for yourself or your company and as well as money. That's just basically what I found was like the straight line across was this was the main thing. If this will work for you because of all the things you're doing manually, then a lot of companies are switching over and trying this instead. All right, now that the background stuff is now taken care of, we can go ahead to create the actual project. If everyone bring up start spring.io.
Is this
I
similar
already
to a
have,
cron project, a cron job?
I don't know what's a cron job.
I will say that a cron job can trigger the batch process.
Okay. All right.
But go ahead and if you want to explain what a cron job is, Titus, I see you raising your hands. If you want to explain what a cron job is, go for it. Unmute yourself, by the way.
A cron job is just something that makes it do it. It does it for you automatically. So right now I have to do it. It's like I have to have emails sent every day at 2 a.m. in the morning. A cron job just does that for you. Basically, it takes your code and it basically makes it like refined and automated. And
Hmm.
it's not that hard. you can it goes. It's very specific though. You have to. I know it goes from like milliseconds all the way up to, I think, hours or days. I'm not sure, but it's very specific, and it's basically when you're running this job, it does something time-wise, it'll do something with your code. It'll make sure something's executed at a certain point in time.
So again, just to clarify, the cron job is just the trigger. You can
Yes.
attach a cron job to any language, to any job, to any endpoint.
Yes.
It's just going to trigger
Trigger.
something. The cron job just
Absolutely.
triggers a command to activate, which can usually trigger a system of
apparently-
code, hit an
apparently
endpoint,
We're
pull
gonna be using
data.
Basically, it's the scheduler.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Cool.
Schedule task.
All
right,
I
let's
will say
continue.
one of the most common cron jobs of any
Sorry.
company is just cleaning up the database. So
Sorry to put
keep
in.
going.
That triggered me.
Nah, hey. I like
yeah, it's good
interrupt
to
and
practice sharing
get this
knowledge.
stuff
That's a good
going.
thing.
I'll leave this up. Obviously, you don't have to copy the artifacts or anything like that, but these are the 5 dependencies we're going to need: Spring Web, Spring Batch, DevTools, JPA data, and H2 database. And once you guys have those all created and generated into your project, just let me know and I will switch over to IntelliJ. Or I should say, if anyone needs more time, let me know. Shout out to Cliff for saying that last class.
Yes, that's a much better way of going about it. If you say something, if you have a problem, people won't want to say something. If it's more like we need more time, just say any more time.
I'm gonna switch over in like a less than a minute. All right, I'm gonna switch over. So I got the application already set up, and I'm in the main file. Let me pull up my notes real quick. So just a quick run through. What we're going to be doing is using Spring Batch to read a CSV file, take that data and write it back into a database, which we're going to be using H2, the in-memory database. And Spring Batch uses 3 components: item reader to read the data from a CSV, item processor is used to alter the data or do something with the data before sending it to the database, and then item writer, which actually writes the data to the database. We're going to implement those throughout our project here, but that's just some background so you guys know what we're going to be doing. If anyone needs a second, let me know still, because right now we're going to go over and create the CSV file quick.
Okay. So did you just, when you, in the Spring Loader, did you take the package? I already have the package initialized, but you just downloaded it and unzipped it?
Yeah, I just unzipped it and threw it in the
And-
folder that I'm working out of.
And did you run it in IntelliJ yet?
I did not run it yet. No, I just threw it in IntelliJ and it indexed it and everything. Right. I don't know if Cliff, is that like pre-building it when you first load it in, or is that just getting all the
What I would
dependencies
recommend with
installed and
these,
stuff?
what I usually do with this item is that when you run those, what I've actually done with it is you create it, you download it, you extract it, and then when you first open IntelliJ, at least on Mac, I don't know how it works in Windows, but there is the import project. So you can get that first, that initial pop-up window, and it pops up whenever you close any active open Java program or any Java window you have open. Close it, you'll get the IntelliJ welcome window, and there's that import option there. And I would just import that project that was created by the Spring Boot initializer. When you do the import, it adds any other
That's
pieces it
interesting.
needs to make sure it works on your system and runs all the controls. Because it imports the item, doesn't just open the file, it actually imports it and actually brings the project in. So that would be my recommendation for everyone to go through. I don't know exactly how to do an import from already opened item in Windows. It's probably under File, Open, or Open New. What is the item? Maybe do Open, maybe. Yeah, that's something I need to figure out how to do it. Because you click New there, and there should be a way to import. That's the issue I don't know how to do on Windows. Windows, I don't really.
I'm not sure either.
So if anyone finds how to
I
do
don't
the
know,
import
I
for
always
Windows,
just-
please share it in Slack.
Honestly, what I always do, I don't know if this is just on Windows, if this is possible elsewise, but I always like just say if this 30 days is a zipped file, I click into it, like drag the unzipped folder that's inside and drag it to the outside of the folder, and it works
Mhm.
every time. I never
Alright.
have an issue, but
Hey,
that's
it
just
works, it works.
that worked for me. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's, you know,
I'm just letting you know what I do on my Mac. If anyone knows how to do the import from Windows, or if they have their own process that seems to work on a regular basis, please share it for Windows. Definitely share it in the Slack. But yeah, on Mac, if I haven't opened IntelliJ editor already, when I close out the IntelliJ that window, it opens up the IntelliJ welcome screen square. On there, there's an import a project option, and that's when I would import the Spring Boot initializer project, and that tends to get it working for me. So that's my process. Anyone else has a better process or any other way they do it, feel free to share your process in Slack. Continue.
all right. So inside of your resources folder, we're just going to create a new file. We're just going to title it users.csv.
Is it a class?
No, it's just a CSV file.
So give me 1 second.
Yep. It's going to be inside the resources folder. I don't know why this is centered. Don't worry about it. I think it's because I have,
And what was your naming convention? Users.csv.
yes, users.csv. Oh, that's all right. You're working off one screen. I forgot.
Yeah. I have another
Yep.
screen too. I just need an HDMI cord, but
Yeah, I'll try and say it more specific. Give it a little more time. All right. Inside the CSV file, we're going to start out with a header for the CSV, and this is going to be the table names, and they're going to be ID, and this is comma separated for a CSV file. ID, comma name, and comma department. I'm just going off a walkthrough that I saw, and this was actually, I just like the way they did it. What we're going to be doing is actually altering this department data later on in the project. We'll get to that.
did you get a box that says register new file type association when you made the CSV file?
That was a pop-up for IntelliJ, right? Asking you to like download something or saying to.
If I could, it says the file USB is not associated with any file type. Please define the association, and then it's file pattern CSV, and it just gives me an initial text. Open matching files in IntelliJ IDEA. It's a bunch. I don't know. Is this the same process you had, or?
Share your screen quick. I'm going to stop sharing quick. Can he share?
Yeah, I enabled it. Sorry, I stepped away for a quick second. That
Right.
oil
No,
smell was
okay.
getting bad. I had to light a candle.
Share it quick, Titus. Are those the only options?
There's a bunch.
Because there should be a CS. I think there's a CSV, or maybe it was just. Keep going down. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Is it just text? Maybe was it?
CSVs are technically just a text file.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I think it's text. I don't know why it asked you that though. That's strange. I don't remember having to do that for me, but could be wrong. Yeah, and then just hit ignore extension. You don't need to add any plugins.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to bother, guys.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just didn't remember that happening.
Okay. Let's stop share.
Probably did that a while ago. Didn't remember.
Yeah, probably. All right, inside this file, we're just gonna go through and just throw in some data. So we can just do ID of number 1, name. I'm just gonna throw in some of your guys' names. So we'll just say Cliff, and then
Any reason why
department
it's
will
all the
be
way over to the side like that?
So I think it's because I'm doing it in presentation mode. Like if I exit, it goes
cool,
over.
okay. I was just,
But-
that was throwing me for a loop. Okay,
Yeah,
never mind. Ignore me.
no, it's okay. So
Mine's actually showing the CSV table as a table.
yeah,
You
I
probably
have
have an
that
extension in there.
installed right here. But this is, I mean, unless you have an extension, you're not going to see it like that. So I'm just going to do it the basic way. All right, we're going to say ID of 1, name Cliff, and department. We're just going to do a 3-digit here of 001. Another one, I'll throw Mr. James, also known as Jim, in there at Department 2. And then 3, Titus was asking some help. Someone took Titus in there as the 3rd. So you can technically do this however you want with like department numbers and names if you want first name, last name, but this is just simple. So we have 3 pieces of data and a header for our CSV. And then before we move on to any classes real quick, we're going to go over to our applications.properties file. Inside of here, Titus, I don't know if you're going to want to, I'll read it out loud, like line by line, so you can type it in without having to look at my screen. So it's going to be, you're going to add a few properties in here, and it's going to be, the first one is spring dot batch dot job dot enabled equals false. And what this is going to do is disable Spring Boot's default job process. We're actually going to be creating our own job and auto wiring it to the batch process that we'll also be creating in our configuration file later. I don't know. I mean, Cliff, you can touch more on this, but the videos I watched said that you got to disable this yourself, or else some issue will happen if you're using this as it's enabled. I don't know much about that. I didn't find anything on it. I didn't research it. But
And I will say, not a lot of times you need to always understand exactly why you do things. Remember, we used Express without knowing every single thing you can do. So know the
Yep.
basics. It's definitely not just hard. Like, I definitely will never tell you don't look into things if you're interested. But at the same time, you don't always need to know every single detail as to why you do things a certain way in order to utilize something. Remember, that's abstraction. You can utilize some of these frameworks without knowing exactly how it works. As long as you know that's required, do it. Yeah, if you want to know why, go for it.
gotcha. All right, and the next, this is going to be an input, or well, the word input, and this is actually going to be the file path of our CSV file. So that process knows where to access it later on in the application. And it's just going to be input equals file and then colon. And you're going to grab the absolute path of this users.csv file that we created. You can get that by right-clicking on it from the project panel, project toolbar, going down to what is it? Copy path, and then absolute path. Once you click on it, you can just right-click, paste it into here. Unfortunately, yes, we have to go through quick and just escape these backslashes. I haven't found a way to make that not happen. But just make sure every backslash is escaped. Watch for a double escape with whatever your file path actually is. And then the third field, real quick, is going to be spring dot data source dot URL equals JDBC colon H2 colon MEM for memory colon test DB. And I'm just going to leave this up, make sure everyone.
Yeah, because I also do want to just throw that quick out there. For Mac users, you don't have to do the escape characters because we use the / in Unix systems. So only
Oh, that's
Windows
awesome.
you have to do the escapes because it uses the /, which is the escape character. Mac systems use the / or Unix systems use the /, which is not an escape character you have to worry about. /s are normal.
Windows, sometimes they use the / as well.
What are you developing on,
Me?
Christian?
Christian. Christian's developing on Windows. Just look in the lower left corner.
Yeah,
I can't see. That's why.
Oh, okay.
wow.
That's
Just,
why.
no
So
worries.
I'm a Mac guy. So this /. So can you show me where we would be using the /?
Well, again, when you did if you were following along with his step, when he copied the absolute path and you paste it in, your
He
absolute
can't see
path.
our screen, Cliff.
You can't. Oh,
He
when
only
you
has
do
one
the-
screen, so I was trying to
Gotcha,
walk
gotcha,
him
gotcha.
through it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
can see, yeah, I'm just gonna have
Titus,
to.
you seeing my screen right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at your screen.
Yeah, so if you right click on the users.csv,
Okay.
copy path option, and then this absolute path here,
Okay.
it's gonna copy and paste it with backslashes, which I escaped here
Yeah.
on every backslash, but you can also change these to forward slashes.
Well, I
Mac-
wouldn't do that on Windows. Be careful on Windows for that. Windows can sometimes use forward slashes, but it also sometimes doesn't use them. So be very, very.
Yes,
I always
this-
say be very, very careful with forward slashes on Windows. Just use the backslashes
Okay.
and escape them.
Okay.
Now, Titus, you said you're using a Mac.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you do that paste of the absolute path, yours will most likely come out as /users / your username. And not do the backslashes because it won't have the C:, because you're using a Unix file system, not a Windows file system.
I got you.
So yeah, you'll have the forward slashes since forward slashes are not escaped characters, so you don't have to worry about that.
All right.
So
Making sure.
the only reason why he has to worry about this is because the backslash, as we know from strings, is how you escape and use special characters. It's the escape character, so you have to double backslash whenever you do a backslash in a string. So that's all. I want to make sure that's clear for the Mac users.
I just wanted to, and I'm gonna have to redo this and
Yeah, no worries.
follow along on my phone. But
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
continue on.
sorry about that, man. That's
no, don't worry about it.
Questions are good. Keep them going. All right.
Yep.
Anyway, keep going.
All right, and I don't know if anyone knows, but this is just so that we can connect to the H2 database in memory when we run our application. All right, next we're going to be creating a new folder in our com dot oh my gosh, dot package, and we are going to name this package model. And inside of this model package, we are going to create a new class and name it user. Yeah. Now, this is very, very similar to doing what we've already done when creating tables and such for our databases. We're going to give it the @entity notation to define it as an entity. And then we are going to throw some fields in here. We're going to have ID annotation for the ID, integer ID field. And then we're just going to throw in a name field as a string and a department field as a string. Cliff, weird thing, this actually needs getters and setters to work. I don't know why, but I did them as public and it failed.
No, that's good.
Oh.
That's all. By just telling me that, I'm happy. Go ahead and use them.
Yep.
That tells me that you tested it and checked it, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I've been doing public and I did it on this one and it failed and I was like, okay, well, that's annoying because apparently it's not universal, which is so annoying to me. But all right, anyway, we're going to create a empty constructor. It is necessary for when you create entities. And then we're going to create a parameter filled constructor. I don't know how you would say that, but in here, we're just going to pass in integer ID, string name, and string department. And then where's this dot? ID equals ID, name, and department equals. Does anyone need any extra time? Can I keep going? Because next is just creating the getters and setters, and instead of doing all those by hand, I'm just gonna do them, generate them from IntelliJ's awesome system and throw those in there. So in the end, your file should have the @entity notation, @ID notation, 3 fields, ID, name, department, empty constructor, regular constructor with parameters, assignments, and then getters and setters for each field. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new package again within the same main package that we have, our main project package, and we're going to name it repository. Right. Inside here, we're going to name this interface user repository. This one's really easy. All you do is just extend a JPA repository. And then we're just going to give it for its in. Is this? For its two fields, I don't remember what they're. Extend. So the target is going to be type user, which is what we just created, our user model, and then its ID is an integer, which is what we gave the user.
Quick, which one did this? If you notice, it had a conflict, didn't know which user file to bring in. So it was asking to confirm which one. So just make sure you pick which one. So see how it says that there's a user for the Apache Catalina system, which is a item he has as well, and other ones. So when you see that, some of the reasons why you might not get an auto import is because that model has multiple references from other extensions or other packages you have, maybe already pre-installed or something. So just be aware that that's what you're getting, and just always make sure you pick the one that you want by looking at the other details here. So we do want that one as part of the batch processing walkthrough model, not from the other systems. So that's what this is.
All right. Once you guys have that done, that is finished. You don't have to worry about anything else in this repository. Next up.
Do you have to annotate it as a repository?
No, I didn't have to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what would happen? I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't matter if you did, but for the walkthrough that I was doing in a couple of videos, they didn't actually do it, but some guys did as well.
Before you do that, clear that out again and start adding it in and look what the tooltip tells you. So as you're adding it, so hover over that. That's where it said for a second, extend repository. No, maybe not. Thought I saw something. All right, never mind. Didn't do it. Thought I saw something pop in there. Maybe it was just something else I saw. All right, go ahead. Never mind. Oh,
there you go.
There, yeah. And it extends. So it's kind of doing what we do with the extend, but it's just, again, it's an annotation, which some systems actually do utilize and some systems don't. Annotations are more for you and the compiler. It's not actually part of code usually. So when it actually gets compiled at the end time, it's done. Either the compiler uses it or it lets you know and lets the editor know to let you know, hey, you are not doing this. It's an annotation. So it's letting the editor and the compiler know some additional information. So annotations a lot of times can be optional. Some aren't now when you get into more complex systems, but some are. So be aware. Some annotations are optional, but it's only a lot of developers do like using them because it makes it more understanding what everything is at a glance. So anyway, keep going. Good question.
I don't know if it works with that, so I'm just going to actually remove that. I mean, I'm sure it would. I don't see why it wouldn't, but all right. Next up, we're going to be creating our configuration file, and this is like the brunt of the code, so I will go slow. I won't go crazy.
Can you do 1 second for me,
I will
please?
say, before we go any farther,
Yeah,
does anyone need to look
absolutely.
at any of the other files again?
Yeah, can I look at user real quick? Because I think I misspelled
I
that.
was literally just about to do that. Thank you, David.
All right. I wanted to make sure. Can you go scroll back up to the top? I just want to make sure it imported the right classes. Okay.
Anyone else?
Speak now or forever hold your peace. If you need to see something in this file, just ask them to scroll down. I will say we're good.
Back over to this real quick. You guys get that. All right. So inside the main package again, we're going to create a new package. I'm going to name this the config package. Inside of here, we're going to create a new class. Obviously, you can make it shorter if you want. I'm just going to name it Spring Batch Config. And within here, like I said, there's a lot of coding that's going to go on here and a lot of imports. But to start it off, we need to throw in an annotation that declares that this is a configuration file. And we also need to throw in an annotation for enable batch processing. This allows pretty sure this allows Spring Batch to recognize this file as a Spring Batch configuration file and tells it to run the data that's in this instead of its default configuration. I could be wrong on that, but from what I understood, that's what it is doing. All right, and now the process is creating a job launcher, and what we do is we create a job, create steps, and then we start creating the information to actually read, write, and process the data. So the first thing we're going to do is create the job. We need the @bean notation for this method within this class, and it's going to be a public. Return a job. Auto import that quick. Again, here, just make sure you're importing the springwork.batch.core job class. And then we're just gonna call it job. Inside of the parameters for this, we're gonna have 5 parameters. These are the 5 main parameters that a job needs in a batch process. It's gonna be job builder factory. And then if you just type J, it'll finish the rest of the word. We're gonna have step builder factory. Step factory. And have an item reader. We'll create later. And then the target type that goes in between the angle brackets is going to be type user. And then we're going to do that item reader. Next, we're going to, this parameter, going to make item processor. Target type user. Input type user, I apologize. And then output type as well is user. And processor. And lastly, item writer. With a target type of user. That's all the parameters. Inside of the actual curly braces for this, we are going to create the job portion first and then cycle back and create the step. It's the way they did it. I think it makes the most sense doing it that way. So we're actually going to return, because this is going to, what we code here is actually going to return a job out of the method that we're using. And so that's what we're returning for this method. We're going to call it job builder factory. So we're grabbing that parameter. We're going to access its get method. And in here, this is the name of the job that we're naming the job here. So whatever you want to put it, we're going to use ETL-load, because we're going to, ETL stands for, what was it?
Extract, transform, and load.
What is it? Extracts. Say it again.
Extract, transform, and load.
Thank you. That's what it is. I said it to myself like 4 or 5 times last night too. I was like, don't forget to say what it means instead of just naming it. So we're naming it that because that's the process that we're doing. And what we're doing with this job is we're actually loading data into the database. And then you can hit enter and go to a new line. So we're going to be using more methods instead of like branching them off each other. You can go to the next line. We're going to use the incrementer method. And we're going to do a new ID incrementer. What this is doing, it actually, so each job has its own ID. You can do this on your own and name these specifically to what you want them, but it's a lot more difficult. This just increments each job by 1 each time a new one is ran. Each time another process goes after each other. And then the next method we're going to do is start. And we're gonna pass our step that we created, that we will be creating in a moment. And what this is doing is you can have multiple steps in a project, or you can just have one. So the programmer, if you have more than one step, you can use another method, and then you can actually flow and choose which order that they go in. But if you're just using one, start is the way to go because it just runs that one for you. And then we're going to end it with a build. So we're going to go up right above this return statement and create our step variable now. It's going to be type step, name it step, and we're going to use our step builder parameter that we passed into this method. We're going to use its.get method as well to give this a name, and we are going to name it etl-file-load, because this is what's going to be, this step is what's going to actually be accessing the CSV file and reading, writing, and processing the data. The next method is its chunk. So what you do is you use a set of angle brackets. You have to specify the input and output type of the chunk that we're going to be of the chunks that we passed in. So these are talking about the records of the data. What's the data? What's it being inputted as? So it's taking in a user and it's outputting a user. And this is where you can specify how much data is being processed per step. So if you had 1 million records, you can say process 100 records at a time here by saying 100. If you want to do 1,000, it's up to you. This number does change how your application, how fast the process will execute. I can just do that at the end and show you guys that there is quite a big difference, even with just I'd say a couple hundred records. I did it and it was like 3 millisecond delay with some of them, and then even more when you change the chunk size to less and more. It's pretty cool. The next method is reader. I'm going to pass in an item reader parameter. And then it is processor, passing in the item processor. And then writer, item writer. And lastly, dot build. So our step is now created.
Can you
As
stop
you can
right?
see, this is, yep.
You stop right there. Just give me a second.
So the step is now created. This is what's actually going to, we're going to create the reader next after this. And that's going to read the CSV file. And then we will pass that data into the processor and then so forth into the writer later.
I'm getting a few errors.
David, when you're all set, just let me know. And then we're gonna well, Richie, where are you getting your errors? Line.
So, for the parameters for job, the item reader, and the angled brackets for user, it's giving me an error. Remove type arguments.
David, can I scroll up quick?
Actually, can you, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Scroll up.
All right. So, are you importing your user model?
Yeah, the one that we made.
And it's still giving you a red word.
Wait, hold on. What? Where's item reader? Okay, I'm importing the wrong item reader. I figured it out.
Okay.
So
I'll
can you
keep this up. Just
keep that for a
everyone,
second?
Yeah, keep that up.
yeah.
All right, yeah, that was it. Good to go.
That was it. David, what about you?
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, for the parameters for item reader where you got user.
That's processor. You mean?
All right, so you're only supposed to put one user there. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So reader is just saying what's the data that it's going to be reading. Processor, what's it inputting, what's it outputting, and then item writer as well. What is it also what is it writing the data that's going to be taken into the writer?
I see. I'm missing a parameter. That's what it is. Item reader. Item. All right. Can you scroll down?
Yep.
Quick heads up, I'm actually gonna stop and start the recording again. I don't know if that's actually gonna do anything, but I've seen some graphical glitches on my screen, so I'm worried if I crash. If I do, I'm gonna lose everything. So stop the recording and restart it.